Brace yourself for another adrenaline-fueled episode of Wham Bam Dashcam. From terrifying T-bones to heavy-impact head-ons, this week's episode is guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your bucket seat or your money back. Dan was headed home after dropping a friend off one night when he approached and stopped at a red light. As he waited for the light to turn green, he noticed an oncoming vehicle in a turn lane wasn't stopping or turning. The oncoming vehicle proceeded full speed through the red light, smashing head-on into Dan's Lexus GS350. The impact cut power to his dashcam and sent his car careening into another vehicle. Thankfully, Dan wasn't seriously injured, but he told us he briefly lost consciousness after his airbag deployed, and the force of the collision broke his glasses in two pieces and embedded one of them between the back seats. He also told us the other driver was very aggressive after the collision and seemed not to realize that he'd done anything wrong. He claimed he'd just gotten off work and was tired. Dan called the police and let them sort it out. Dan has legal representation and is now waiting for the insurance process to be completed while he receives chiropractic treatment for whiplash. Sadly, his Lexus will most likely be totaled. This submitter watched the driver of an oncoming pickup truck turn across his lane with no regard for the SUV ahead of him. Even though the SUV driver hit the brakes and swerved, they couldn't avoid a collision with the pickup. Our submitter stopped to check on the involved drivers, and thankfully nobody was hurt. Police and paramedics responded to the scene after he called 911. Peter was driving the Honda Insight he'd rebuilt the same day he put his custom geeky license plate on it. As the first hybrid vehicle ever produced, it had 348,000 miles on it when a trucker's transaxle came flying toward it on a highway. The 100-pound part came flying off the semi before smashing into Peter's headlight, hood, and windshield. The truck's brake canisters were also damaged, and it took the trucker over a mile to slow down using engine braking. Peter told us he called 911, but first responders didn't. The trucker ended up limping his semi home while Peter somehow managed to drive for 3.5 hours to get home. His employer proceeded to fire him, and he's now pursuing legal action against them with the help of 2 lawyers. He's since repaired the Honda Insight himself, and he told us this was the 4th collision he's captured on dashcam. He's so convinced of the necessity of dashcams, he told us he gives them to friends and family as gifts and even offers to install them. Hopefully he's using our discount codes in the description so he can save some money. Sadly, the head and neck injuries he sustained in this incident have given him a stutter and memory problems. Still, he's grateful the 100-pound projectile didn't come through the driver's side of the windshield, and so are we. George, who asked us to pronounce his name that way, was driving down a winding mountain road when the driver ahead of him took a turn too fast and lost control before sliding helplessly into an oncoming van. George stopped and checked on both drivers. Incredibly, even though the impact set off the airbags of both vehicles, he told us that nobody was hurt. He's also amazed that he missed being involved by just a few inches. Matthew watched an oncoming driver make a U-turn in front of a pickup truck, forcing it nearly to a stop. But her antics didn't end there. Watch what she went on to do after abusing a turn lane. I feel like she was trying to sideshow, but she wasn't very good at it. Matthew said that some people seem to treat cars as toys rather than the dangerous weapons they can be. I couldn't have said it better myself, Matthew. Bob was driving down an Oregon highway when he had to slam on the brakes for a pickup truck stopped in the middle of his lane. A washer and dryer set that had been stacked in the back of the pickup had taken a tumble, and the driver had decided to stop in the highway instead of pulling over. Bob barely avoided rear-ending the stopped pickup truck. Bob didn't want to get rear-ended himself, so he quickly got around the pickup truck. Thankfully, other drivers also saw what happened and made room for people to get around the pickup. Sarah and John were driving at 40 miles per hour when a driver in the neighboring lane left a gap for an oncoming pickup truck, and the driver turned in front of them, causing a brutal T-bone collision. Our submitter's Dodge Charger ended up striking an SUV after being sent off the road by the impact. All of this could have been avoided by the Honda driver not yielding when they had the right-of-way. Remember, when you have the right-of-way, close the gap. Yielding when you don't have to isn't courteous, it's dangerous. Sadly, this collision totaled our submitter's Charger. We've had some fans ask for clarification of our Close the Gap comments, and this video is a perfect example of what we're talking about. The Honda driver didn't have a stop sign, and nobody was blocking them from continuing. If they had continued, they wouldn't have blocked any intersections. The best thing they could have done was keep driving, but they tried to do the pickup driver a favor, and the results were far worse than having to wait. Of course, the pickup driver shouldn't have turned without making sure traffic was clear, but stopping to let someone else have your right-of-way can pressure them into doing something dangerous. Don't be that guy. This submitter watched something fall off the back of a concrete pumping truck and go rolling down the highway behind him. After flying past our submitter, the object was eventually hit by a van behind him. We don't know exactly what the van driver was thinking, but when they couldn't avoid a collision, I'm guessing they said, "Ah, bucket." This submitter was behind a taxi in the passing lane of a highway when the taxi driver suddenly slammed on the brakes before rear-ending a Jeep. Incredibly, our submitter managed to squeeze between the taxi and the median barrier without damaging his Audi A6. He told us the Jeep seemed to handle the impact like a champ, but he thinks the Dodge Journey is likely totaled. Max was on his way to a meeting when an oncoming SUV driver turned across his lane while he was going almost 45 miles per hour. Incredibly, Max was able to swerve behind the SUV to avoid a T-bone collision with a foot to spare, perhaps less. He told us he was shocked by the event and nearly forgot to save his dashcam footage. Speaking of his dashcam, Max told us he bought one of the dashcams we recommend. If you need this picture quality in your life, check the links in the description and use our coupon code to get yourself a discount. Ian also had an SUV driver turn across his lane, but he wasn't able to avoid slamming into it at almost 40 miles per hour. Once again, the SUV driver had failed to yield to oncoming traffic. Thankfully, Ian wasn't seriously injured, and he's now waiting to find out what will happen to his Jeep Renegade. Dalton spotted a Tesla behaving badly when a Model Y driver came toward him down a one-way street the wrong way.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
It seems like the Tesla driver thought that using their hazard lamps made it okay for them to go the wrong way, and Dalton told us they continued on their way as if everything was fine. Noah was headed back to his uncle's house after picking up dinner when he noticed a couple of pedestrians with a stroller using the crosswalk even though they had a "don't walk" signal. This won't end well. When a pickup driver slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting the jaywalking pedestrians, they were rear-ended by another vehicle. Only then did it occur to the pedestrians that perhaps the walk signal serves a useful purpose. Noah pulled over and stuck around to give the police his dashcam footage, and he told us that the cops actually cited the pedestrians for causing the collision. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. James was headed onto a highway in Chicago when he encountered an SUV driver with main character syndrome. Yep, that SUV driver cut across an entry ramp to reach an exit ramp, completely illegally and without checking to see if there was any traffic coming. Thankfully, James was paying attention, and at least he knows that his brakes work. Walker sent us this footage from when his sister tried to cut across a busy street and got T-boned by another driver with the right-of-way. Walker told us both drivers pulled over to exchange information and the police found his sister responsible for the collision. Their Chevy Equinox was worth $10,000 US, but was going to cost $7,000 to fix, so insurance totaled it. See this thing? It's some sort of storm drain cover or something. Probably not something you'd want to get a tire stuck in, right? This submitter watched a pickup driver try to turn early into a parking lot and hit this instead. Okay, that just looks painful. The pickup driver had to drive up and over the curb, then grind the bottom of the truck against it to get back out of the grass. Ouch! Ashton was driving home during a tornado warning, and the high winds had cut power to the traffic lights. We all know what to do when this happens, right? Evidently that Mustang driver doesn't. He claimed he'd never been in this situation and didn't realize that unpowered traffic signals should be treated as four-way stops. So he just barreled right through and T-boned another car. Ashton gave copies of his dashcam footage to both drivers and the police. Thankfully, the Mustang driver did accept responsibility for causing the collision. Jason was on his way to the airport to pick up his neighbor when he nearly collided head-on with a wrong-way driver on the interstate. Jason told us the other driver's high beams blinded him and he couldn't tell until the last second that they were in his lane. Thankfully, the Audi driver on his right gave him space to swerve so he could avoid a collision. Jason told us he called 911 and provided police with the location of the wrong-way driver. But on his way back from the airport, he didn't see any police cars. Hopefully the driver realized their mistake and got off the highway. This submitter watched a sedan blow through a red light and get T-boned by an SUV. The impact sent the car spinning around. Our submitter told us that on his way back, he saw an ambulance and 3 police cars, but he also told us there were no serious injuries. Angie was giving her nephew a ride to his university when she stopped for a traffic light. Out of nowhere, they watched a rabbit go running across the road in front of them. Angie told us that after sprinting across the road, the bunny stopped before reaching the sidewalk, but the driver in that lane let him finish crossing. They laughed about it before continuing. Watch this video if you want to see a rabbit try to break the high jump record when he gets spooked. Or watch this episode if you want to see another cute bunny caught on dashcam frolicking in the snow.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.